Hi everyone, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I thought we'd delve into the wonderful world of drag and drop. This is the type of feature that, it may not apply to every single database, but for those of you that need to incorporate the ability for users to select files to then, process, quote unquote, drag and drop is one of a variety of different options available to you. Now, I've done videos and articles on using the file dialog, and this is a more of an interactive approach that many people like because it's very similar to what we see on many websites nowadays. Now, there are different approaches to doing drag and drop. Today I am focusing on one. I will eventually write an article on the subject and expand upon it, and I will include other alternative approaches. But for today's video, I am concentrating on actually using an ActiveX control. I know. I usually shy away from ActiveX completely. In reality, I haven't used an ActiveX in probably over a decade. But this is one of these cases where sometimes, there's a tool out there, it exists, it simplifies things, why not use it? In general, I like to use code, 100% base code. This is just one of these scenarios where, it exists, let's employ it, let's up our game with our forms and give users a real good user experience. And that's what this does. So let's just dive in and take a look at this approach to adding drag and drop to your forms, your Microsoft Access forms. Now, how does it work? Like I said, we're going to employ an ActiveX control. We're going to embed it into our form. Now, what shape that takes, where you put it, that's all up to you. And you can, change borders and do things to jazz it up to suit your needs in the context of your database. But they're always the same general idea. And this might be a great opportunity for like a pop-up form, when you need the input from the user. Instead of embedding this just in your main form, perhaps you have a button here, add files, poof, then you get this pop-up like you do with certain websites, and they just drag and drop into that. And once it's done processing the files, it automatically closes. Just an idea. So let's take a look. Now, in this demo that I'm going to go over today, I'm going to present to you four approaches, four uses. And you're going to see that three of them, so the image, text, just files approach, Word documents, and Excel. Now these, all three, the general approach, don't get me wrong, there are differences when I'm going to get into the automation, but the general approach, they are external files that you drag and drop. So they're all going to be handled in a similar way. Obviously, one uses Excel automation, one uses Word automation, but the concept, they're always similar. The one that really is going to be different is when we look at Outlook. I'm going to keep that for last because it really is slightly different. We're going to use Outlook automation, but you'll see it's slightly different. So I'm going to keep that for the end. So if that's the type of thing that you're really interested in, you can just basically skip forward a little bit in this video and just jump. It will be probably the very last thing I'm going to cover, and it will take a chunk of time because I'm going to go over the code in detail. So that brings us to, well, what is it? Well, let's just look at the form, the form that I've created. Obviously, how you create yours can be different. But what I did is, as you can see, I put here a blue border to really make it stand out. But this is the drag and drop area. Now, this is an ActiveX control, so you can resize it, bigger, smaller. You can change the border. All these properties are available to you, so you can play around with that. But basically, we just simply drop the control into the form. And then we use an event in VBA to make the drag and drop work. It's that simple. And what do you do with the drag and drop input is up to you. Once again, you're in VBA, so you choose. Is it just getting a listing of the files and then, inserting them into a table? Then so be it. Is it getting a listing of the files and, let's say, images here, and you want to go get properties, get height, width, resolution? Then that's what you do. You want to get a list of files and resave them somewhere else? No problem. And that's what you do. So, if it's a Word document, I'm going to show you how to go get the headings out of Word documents. So you could create basically, I guess, a table of content outside of the document through automation. In Excel, I'm going to go extract a list of worksheets. But the choice is yours. You could go alter Word documents, get lists of bookmarks, get, whatever you need. You could go get a listing of these Word documents because you want to zip them up and then email them out. In Excel, you could go get data. You could go update data. You could, all sorts of things. That is not controlled by the drag and drop itself. The drag and drop is basically just to capture what did the user place there. Then what you do with it is entirely up to you and in your coding what you do. Okay, enough talk. Let's look at a concrete example. So I'm just going to keep going with this text image. And in reality, it's any file. Okay, the Word one, I've designed it specifically for Word documents, the Excel documents. But this one here is a general one for any file. Now, I put images and text. It's just an example. But any file, it could be absolutely any file. It doesn't distinguish. So let's go into design view just so you can see exactly what I said. It is literally just an ActiveX that I dropped in place. Which ActiveX? How did I do this? So let's just create a new one from scratch just to demonstrate how this all came to be. So you're going to have your form, whatever it will be. You're going to come on the design tab of form design tools, and you're going to click on the down button here that's more, and you're going to go ActiveX controls. Now with the pop-up dialog, you're going to scroll down a little bit past the Microsoft Forms, and you're going to come down here to ListViewCtrl. Okay, that's the guy we want for our purposes today. You say yes, it gets inserted. Now here you can move it, you can resize it, you can change all sorts of properties, format, special effect, you go wild. What is critical, however, for this drag and drop process to work is you have to go here on the others, scroll down till you find the property here, Ole drop mode. And you need to switch that from 0, you need to switch it to 1, which is the CC Ole drop manual. As long as you do that, the VBA code will fire. If you don't do that, then even though you've created all this beautiful code, it will not work. So at this point, you'd save it, and then we'd go into VBA. So I'm going to close this. I just wanted to show you the process. Now, I already did this. So now let's go into VBA. Now I'm going to point out something. Because it's an ActiveX control, not native to Access, when you go on the events for that control, you're going to see very little. It doesn't display here the native events that this control gives us. And that's a sad thing, because if they were here and we were able to just see them, I think a lot more people would be able to play around and learn and try things out. A lot of times you get this, you click on it, I can't do anything, and you just move on. So you have to go online and do research, or you have to have used these controls in other languages and whatnot to be aware that they do offer many other capabilities than what we assume they have when we look at this property sheet. So that being said, then how do I add those functionalities? Well, it's all done directly in VBA. So we actually have to switch into VBA. So just for my purpose, I'm just going to take this button because it will bring me into the right module. And it's going to open up my VBA window. Now you're going to see here, this is my code that I implemented to make things work. We're going to look at that in a second. But the first thing is, how the heck did I manage to go and set up this code? You don't want to be having to know this syntax and write it out long. How I did it is I simply came up here and I selected my list view control. So I'm just going to click it here. And then here, that is the wrong one. I don't want the update event. But now if you click here, you're going to see you've got all sorts of other events available to you. And the ones that are interesting to us is, as you can see here, you got drag and drop, drag over. Anyway, you see these different options here. So one that interests us today for the purposes of this discussion is the Ole drag drop. And the minute you do that, now we'll delete this because we're not going to use it, it automatically created this event for us. So that's how I plugged it in, and then I just started coding. So we're going to undo this. And we're going to undo the uncommenting. Here we go. Now we're back in business. So that's how I went about creating this guy here. Now we're in the thick of coding for reacting to the user dragging and dropping a set of files into that control. And what I'm doing here is I'm defining two variables, a file counter, so it's just for iterating over the files. And then here I have a total number of files. So what were the quantity, the number of files that the user actually dropped into that control? So then after that, I can actually iterate over each individual file one by one. So I define the total number of files by this. Now, how did I come up with this? Well, this event, it's going to expose these different values to us, these different variables that we can use, one of which is data. And data then exposes other properties and methods, etc. And one of those is files that I can then count. So that's how easy it is for me to get the quantity of files that the user actually dropped into the control. With that, then I create my iteration counter. So I'm going to count from file number 1, it's 1 based, not 0 based, to the total number, the count that we just got. So I'm going to iterate file by file by file. So the beauty here is it could be 1 file, it could be 200 files. It makes no difference. It will process each one by one. What am I doing? Well, just for illustrative purposes and to show that the process works, I then just put a debug print. And here, this will actually output the file path and file name. And realistically, that's the most important piece of the entire puzzle, because with that, then you can automate everything else subsequently. So I'm going to just have any files that were put in that control listed here in my immediate window. And then below, then I'm calling a procedure that I create to do something with that file. What does that procedure do? Well, it was just for illustrative purposes. I put it here. It could be anything. In reality, if we're talking, let's say this is for images, well, probably one of the things we'd want to do is validate the file extension. If it was for text files, then you want to make sure it's a TXT, it's a comma separated, well, SCSV. So you may want to add checks and balances. Regardless of that, like I say here, I'm going to call my procedure. I'm going to pass the current file that we're iterating over. So as it goes over each file, it's going to fire this procedure each time. So each file will run through this procedure. And then here, it could be as simple as saving the file to a destination. It could be instead here, we may want to create an array and then use that to build a zip file and then email. It could be we want to go and read the file content. It could be we just want to take these files and insert them into a table. So the choice of what you need to do and how you go about it is entirely up to you. But I just wanted to demonstrate how simple it is. We determine how many files there are in total. We iterate over them one by one, and we do whatever we want to them. So let's just look at this in practice. In reality, this line here, because it doesn't do anything, will do nothing. So the result that we're going to see is it's going to simply enumerate in the immediate window the files that were dropped. So let's look at this in practice. I'm going to open up my Explorer. Give me 2 seconds to get to the right place. Okay, so here we go. So it could be 1 file, it could be 300 files. It really makes no difference. I'm going to come here. I'll pick these 4. Drop it here. Oh. And now if we go back, okay, 1 file. If we come here, try that again, try 4 files. Well, we already had 1, so now we're going to be up to 5. And the last 4 were just dropped. So as you can see, it can iterate over 1 or any number of files. And that's as simple or as complex it is for files. Now we want to start turning our attention to doing more particular things. Things such as dealing with Word documents, Excel documents. So let's look at the Excel. Oh, look at that. It's the exact same form. Like I said to you, nothing changes on that front. What changes is the VBA. Now you're seeing it's becoming more involved. Why? Well, what I'm now doing, I'm also adding new variables to capture the file name itself and then extract the extension of the file. So I'm going to come here, and we already know all of this, get the count, iterate over the files. We already know this gives us our file path and file name that we saw, printed out here before. So I'm going to take that same value, I'm now going to pass it to a variable called sFile. So it's the string value of my file. And then from that, I'm going to use this write. I'm going to go get just the extension portion of the file name. So now I've got the extension. Now I can validate, because this is for Excel files only, because my code will break if I try to pass other files to it, that it is an XL, XLS, XLM, etc., etc. So as long as it has the right file extension, and you can add or remove depending on what you want, then it's going to call my process workbook, and I'm going to pass it to it the file. So what does process workbook? In this case, what it does is it's going to go launch Excel. It's going to open the file that it was passed. So we're passing here for every file, one by one by one. It's going to pass the file to it. And it's going to open that file. And it's going to extract a list of worksheets that exist in that file. And then it's going to shut down. That's it. So let's take a look at that in operation. So we go back to our form here. I bring up my files. So for Excel, I'll take this one and this one. And we just drag them. Let them go. And then if I come back into, here we go, you will now see that we have right here a listing of the first Excel workbook and the sheets that were in it, the second Excel workbook and the sheets that were in it. So it's just to illustrate, but we could do anything because we're in here. So you can go in and you can change values, you can read values, you could create sheets, create charts. The sky's the limit. Save the file somewhere, export it as a different format. You all know what automation provides to us. So when we're here, we have full automation capability. So anything you want to do, you can do. And similarly, if we come back to Excel here, close this down, and we open the Word one, it's the exact same thing. Like I say, the control itself doesn't change. What changes is the VBA code. Now we're going to do the same general process here, iterate over the file, get the file name, the extension, ensure we're dealing with the proper type of file before then passing that file to our custom procedure to do something. In this case, we're going to use Word automation to open Word, open the document, then iterate through the paragraphs, looking for, in my case, I told it to run over the headings. And I told it to run over the headings level 1 through what I specified up here, so through 5. So heading 1, heading 2, heading 3, heading 4, and heading 5 in a document. And for each heading that it does locate, then spit it out in the immediate window. So let's clear all of this out. And it really is that simple. So let's come here, just pick Word documents, for instance. We could even take an extra one. Let's take an image. And if we do this, and we let it do its thing, and we can come back to our VBA, right? What do we have? We have here, yes, it debug printed because we have debug print here, but it didn't actually try to output any values because the extension on that JPEG would never have passed here. So it wouldn't do anything. Here you could put up a message to the user if you wanted to make them aware that one of their files didn't meet the necessary format, But then it proceeded to do the second one, and it extracted here the different headings for that file. Then it went to the next file and pulled out the one heading that it had. So this is just Word automation. You do whatever you want. Like I say, you can go and get bookmarks. You could update bookmarks. You could save the file in different formats, save it elsewhere, zip it up, email it. Like, the sky's the limit once again. But I just wanted to show you how simple it is that you can get the files. You can identify the type of files to make sure they meet your needs, whatever your automation is going to do, and then proceed to do the automation portion. And that really is it for, files. So Excel, Word, or any other type of file. Now, Outlook is a very special case because when someone's going to drag and drop Outlook, first of all, Outlook has to already be running. And that means that we have access to certain components of Outlook. So once again, nothing changes on the form, but once again, it's all in the code. And in the code, you're going to see here that here I am not identifying files. I'm not getting a count because there are no files. We're not dragging and dropping files. We're dragging and dropping items. Could be mail items, contact, there's different types of items in Outlook. So we can't do what we normally would do here, finding data, files, count. That will error. Anything you try to do with data will fail. So instead, I'm going to simply call my procedure process mail items. Okay, I know you've got it. You can't handle it directly. So let's just come straight into automation mode. And what automation mode is going to do, as you're going to see here, we declare our variables for Outlook, the Explorer, the current selection in the Explorer, and then we're going to break it down into individual items and see if they have attachments. So basically we come here and we define Outlook. We don't have to create an instance. We know it already is running because they've drag and dropped it. Then we can go here, go get the Active Explorer and go get what was selected inside Outlook. So it's entirely based directly on Outlook automation. It has nothing to do in reality with the control and what's in the control. It's just a means to trigger our function. That's it. And then, well, it's easy because we have the selection. We've identified what's been selected in Outlook. Well, then we can just apply a count. And now we know how many items were drag and dropped. And then we can iterate over them for item number 1 through the quantity of items. And we can process each item one by one. So now we're going to go selection of the item. And we're going to say, go get the first item. Then go get the second item and the third item, etc. And then, depending on what you're trying to do, well, here I'm going to first check, the mail item, because I'm checking mail items. I want to check emails. So let's make sure we're dealing with an email, that they didn't accidentally drag and drop a contact or an appointment, let's say. And then if it is a mail item, now we can proceed with that item and we can go get whatever we'd like. So here you have body, which is the plain text version, or you could go get the HTML body if that is of importance to you. You can go get whatever you want, CC, BCC. You can go get the to or the recipients, depending. You can get the send date, the subject, the sender email. So you see, it's full automation. You have access to all the information. You could break down the body and then process it line by line if that's what you need to do. And once you have this information, obviously, if you need to store this in a table, you could just grab that information right here and push it to a table directly. And I wanted to demonstrate here code for processing the attachments. Now, word of caution. With Outlook, when you run through the attachments in a mail item, you're going to get all the attachments, including embedded images. So sometimes in emails, people have logos and things like that. Well, those are embedded images. It can be really complicated to identify which ones are embedded and which ones aren't. This approach seems to work, but I must say I haven't thoroughly tested it. But on my limited testing, for myself at least, it has been successful. What I'm doing is I'm going and getting the attachment items one by one, and I'm checking if the CID of the file name is in the HTML body. Because if it's in the HTML body, then that means it's an embedded image. And if it isn't, well, then it's just a normal attachment. In which case, if it's a normal attachment, then I'm going to save it out as a file. Just a demonstration of how you could extract those files very simply if you needed to. So I just process attachment by attachment and I save it to whatever folder I want with the original name. You could override this and you could give it new names. Like, the sky's the limit. Obviously, with all of this stuff too, whether it be Word, Excel, Outlook, if you wanted, you could push this out to list boxes on your form or combo boxes. You can do all sorts of really nifty things with all of this. But this is just to show you how simple you can drag and drop an email and put it into into Access to work with it directly, and then what you do with the information is up to you. Let me just very quickly demonstrate. If I open my Outlook for a second, and what I can do is try to find an email. Here we go, let's say. So I'm going to go back to my form. I will now drag and drop over the email. And if we come here, you'll see that it has just put out the content of the email. I could, well, just for illustrative purposes, let's repeat that exact same thing. I just want to show to you a little bit how you go about doing some of this sometime, especially the Outlook context. So let's come back here. I'm going to drop the exact same email. Let's put it there. So I'm in break mode here. This is perfect. And some of you are asking me, how do you know which properties? How do you know that you have this information? And how did you determine that you can do item, attachment, and thing? The easy way of going about that is go to View and go to your local window. And here you get access to all of the information that is currently in memory. So you'll see I've got my Outlook instance, Explorer selection, and the current. We're looping through, and each time we're looping, we're defining the current item. So the current item is an email, right? Because we made sure it was an OL mail class. And then we can come here and you can see I have attachment has no value, but how do I know? I can come here and I can look at attachments, and that's how I knew. Item attachments. And then if you go into attachments, you can see that you have that property count, which is what I used here to determine if I have attachments or not. You can see clearly here that the count for this item is 0. So I have no attachments on this email. You can then just keep going down and you can start seeing the BCC, the CC. You can check out the entry ID, etc., etc., etc. You can just keep going through all of this. The date it was changed, the date it was received, etc., etc. You can also use the parent, like I have here, the parent name to go get the folder from which this was dragged and dropped, or the store ID of that folder if you need to store that in your database to make it easier to retrieve the item. So all of that information is available to you, and that's what the local window is really powerful for, allowing you to do those types of analysis sometimes. You know, you can go on and do all sorts of research online, look at support documentation, but the local window can really give you a leg up quickly to identify the proper names of properties. And then you can go and take, okay, the sender email address. Now you can copy paste that into Google and go straight to that support documentation. I'm of course talking here because I'm using always late binding. If you use early binding, then you get the benefit of having the Intellisense, being able to press F1 to go directly to help files and things like that. But just, yeah, know that that's how a bulk of what I did here. It's just using the local windows, dissecting what's available to me, drilling down, and then managing to build the code to get whatever information I need. And that's going to be about it for working with the drag and drop ListView ActiveX. It really does offer a lot of power under the hood, because we don't need to do anything beyond set it in place on the form and then drop in place the event. The rest, this automation, you're going to do one way or another. No, regardless of which approach you use for drag and drop or file selection, if you want to use the file dialog, this portion you're going to have to do. The word automation, the Excel automation to go get properties of images or files, like all of that you're going to have to do one way or another. So the only thing that you really are doing to enable drag and drop is this bit of code here, and that's it. So I hope this is useful to some of you to throw in drag and drop pretty easily into any form you want. And yeah, up your game a little bit and give your users an interesting user experience. If you don't mind, please like, share, subscribe, And hey, drop me a comment. Is this the type of thing that you might find useful in some application? Should I continue exploring some more of these ActiveX controls, or do you guys prefer that I stick more on the narrow, true database access stuff, and these types of functionalities are of less interest to you? So drop me a comment. Let me know if this is the type of thing that you enjoy, if there's an ActiveX that you particularly would like me to explore. I'm always open to any feedback you give me. But as always, please like, share, subscribe. It's the only way in reality that you pay me back for my investment of time in putting out these videos for you, which I'm more than happy to do. So I'm going to stop there. I hope this was useful to some of you, and we'll see you in the next video, everyone. Have a great end of day.